Welcome back to Too Much Popcorn, the movie review podcast where Jimmy and I watch a movie and then we sit down. We talk about the highs, the lows, things we liked, things we didn't like about the movie. And this week we watched the hit seminal feature from 2023. That's right, folks. It's our first actual time that we have ever watched a movie that has come out anytime remotely recently, and you might be interested in watching. That's right. It is Evil Dead Rise 2023.
Ooh, rising like a loaf of bread.
That's right.
Steamy.
Sam Raimi put a whole bunch of yeast in this movie, and then they said, Sam Raimi, get out of here. You're a bad movie director. Get out of here. We don't like you. Go direct that bad Doctor Strange movie. And then he said, I think I will, and I'll put Bruce Campbell in that one, and it'll still be bad.
I think I will have done that in the past already. And they're like, oh no,
He did
don't
it.
do it again.
Yeah, that's right. Hot take alert, folks. The new Doctor Strange movie is bad.
It's called Multiverse of Madness. Show it some respect that it didn't earn.
Well, that movie was bad, and we'll maybe do an episode on that one someday. But Jimmy, what'd you think about this movie?
Evil Dead Rise. So let's preface here the last Evil Dead movie that I have seen in the now long-running double rebooted series. The last one I saw was the first Evil Dead movie, and I maybe watched it over 10 years ago. But I remember thinking, hey, what a fun concept. You get some fun, like really good effects. You get Bruce Campbell being a goofball. It's cheesy, it's campy, it's in a cabin. It's a cult classic, but also possibly did well enough to warrant this sort of vibe about it to get its own TV show and spin-offs and whatever, what have you. But here we are, Evil Dead Rise. Haven't seen the previous reboot, 2013, also just called Evil Dead, which is confusing.
Yeah.
So let's just say that. At least Rise, you're like, well, something's happening. There's something about this movie to me that it didn't work in the way that I was anticipating it. And I was going in immediately. The movie starts. We'll probably spoil most of this. Let's just preface that. There's a shot very reminiscent of the first Evil Dead where you're in the eye of the monster, going through the woods, over a river, over a lake, and it's just a drone. It's just a goofy drone. It's not a monster, you goof. Nothing bad can happen. We're going to stay alive the whole movie. So is the vibe that I was supposed to get from that opening sequence, this could be funny, like Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. So I've heard. Army of Darkness, literally a comedy. Like, honestly, from what I've seen, that's a comedic film. So it does you the whole drone switch. It gives you all this sort of imagery that is scary in some way and funny in another way. And then you're like, okay, where are we going here? It sort of left me on this like feeling of FOMO, like how am I supposed to react to this scene here when the knowledge that I have of this series is book bad, evil, the dead are evil and the evil are dead, but also they're rising.
You know, I honestly think that the way that we were supposed to react to that scene was the way that we did react to that scene, where we saw it and we went, ha, they did the thing from the movie that Sam Raimi did. And then that was our whole reaction.
So they're expecting theater fulls of people to look at that scene and go, ha. Sam Raimi reference.
Yeah. I kind of think it was like they wanted a pity laugh. They got a pity laugh. And so they got exactly what they wanted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
were you supposed to think that they were setting it up to do all the classic Sam Raimi bits? Which in some ways they did. You know, there were certain shots where I would see them and I'd be like, oh, that's a Raimi angle. Or that's like, you know, his type of thing. He did that. That's a comedy thing. But it was just like, did it need to be done? Did it?
It almost makes me think, was the 2013 reboot good enough to have enough reinvigorated drive behind this sort of idea? Because it is the same idea. Book bad, Evil Dead, it rises up. Same concept, literally the same thing. Bad things happen to people, they become possessed, people die in gruesome manners. That's the first movie.
Yeah.
So do it again, and this time it's not Sam Raimi directing, but have it be like almost he's like puppeteering whoever was the director, just being like, hey, you gotta put a shot in here, and it's gotta look. So you seen Spider-Man, right? I did those three, and he's a pizza delivery boy in that one, so you gotta get the pizza. Like, I don't know, folks. It didn't feel right at all.
Yeah. Did he do the 2013 one? I don't know.
I don't.
As always.
Guess what? I don't think so.
Yeah. As always, folks, zero preparation. We didn't do preparation for the last episode. We watched a movie for this one. That's all we're going to do. But yeah, no,
we rename the podcast. We watched the movie.
What do you want from us?
We watched the movie. That's it.
But yeah, so I've seen the first Evil Dead. I've seen the second one because I think I remember a zombie getting his head chopped off in that one, being his wife. And then I've seen Army of Darkness because I love that movie.
Which it's not called Evil Dead 3.
No,
but is technically.
But yeah, so you have all of these movies that have a very simple concept, as Jimmy has said. Book bad things come up, people get mutilated.
Book bad.
But like, what is it about this series that is inspiring so much? And look, folks, they say that these movies have a lot of cult acclaim, but I rarely meet people in that like niche cult market that are like, yo, I do get people who are like, Army of Darkness is great.
Army of Darkness, yeah.
But I rarely meet people who are like, yo, Evil Dead's like my movie. And it's like, I don't know. I'm just not meeting those people.
It's almost like it's a cult of a niche of a cult. Like there's sub levels. You have to go really far down into this person watched every horror film and they decided that Evil Dead and Sam Raimi really had it going on, and then he put out the Spider movies and they were like, what the heck's he doing with this? He should just be doing a more evil.
or is the cult simply just Sam Raimi who loves Bruce Campbell and he's like, look, I gotta do this for Bruce. He's expecting me to put these movies out, and Bruce Campbell's like, yo, I'm not expecting that.
I really want to retire here, Sam. Can you hasten this for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, alas, we've ended up with another movie where people find book get read, bad thing happen. And
can we circle back to what is the deal with the Book of the Dead in this, though? There's definitely a tie to sort of Necronomicon, H.P. Lovecraft situation here. He's not the first to have done it, but there's like a core concept of a evil book that is like Satan's, like he sent it up through a little hole. He's like, hey guys, I got a little book for you if you want to. And it's not like Evil Dead created the concept of the Book of the Dead. It's just, it was a very good use of, again, like a closed environment, besieging these people with this book and the evils that come out of the book. So there is something to the concept that I like, which is why I think we chose to watch this movie in the first place. We thought, here's an Evil Dead. The evil and the dead are the book's summoning.
Yeah.
And that's sort of fun because the villain isn't necessarily just like the devil or like a demon. It is this unknowable power that is demonic and is evil in some way. And its powers are this unknowable thing. But then the film proceeds to take its unknowable powers and squander them in that the people who are possessed, A, cannot be killed, B, want to kill all the people and cause chaos, C, they can't be killed. Like, the movie chooses to like take an unknowable power and boil it down to, you can't kill these guys and you're gonna try and you're gonna fail, and it just boils it down to this stupid monotonous feeling to me.
I totally agree, and I think something these movies have always done well is that they have the book that they never explain. They're like, yo, somebody finds this book, something gets read, and then bad things happen. And I love the fact that it's like, it does what so many Lovecraft movies can't do, where, you know, Lovecraft movies want to be like, oh, it's an unknowable thing, but we're going to totally describe everything about it and like totally go into detail about it. And look right at it. And it shouldn't do that.
The color was purple all along.
Yeah. Unknowable shapes. It was a cube. Like,
a square.
Yeah. So there's all these movies that want to do these cosmic horror things and have unknowable powers, but they explain it. And so these movies do a good job of letting it be nebulous and letting it be spooky. And the first part of this movie does a really good job of doing what the other movies have done, which is like setting up the dread of something is coming and it can fuck you up in 10 different ways, and it's spooky as heck. I really liked it. I thought the movie did a really good job of setting up, like, you had voices coming out of weird places, you had shadows that were doing certain things. It just had a very good dread feel to it. And then they reveal the evil spirits come out and possess one of the characters. We're going to spoil it because I think everybody who has seen this movie has spoiled it. It's the mom.
It's
and
marketed.
Yeah.
Like she's caressing the children. Like it's her.
Yeah. So spoiler, no spoiler, but whatever. You're here.
You can't even not watch the movie and not know that it's the mom. You're just like, oh.
It's going to be the mom. Yeah.
Got it.
But yeah, and then so it takes over the mom, and then it just gets monotonous and overdone. And it gets overdone in the way that the mom starts acting a fool to these kids, and they're just like, Mom, what are you doing? And they just stand there while the mom does bad things to them, and they're like, Mom, what are you doing? Look, I get that people in horrific situations go into a sense of shock and, you know, have a hard time comprehending what's going on in that situation. But what they showed in the movie was not a sense of shock. It was just the characters didn't have a way to respond in a way that was realistic to being enclosed in an enclosed space with this thing. Because legitimately, you know, mom comes out of the bathroom, stabs one of them. All the kids could have been like, nope, we're out. And then that would have been it. But they didn't. They were like, oh, we can't have that happen because we need them to stay in the apartment. So they're just going to stand there. And it took me out of that moment right there where I was like, I'm screaming at the movie screen. I'm like, move, get out of there. And they're just not. And it took me out of it because I was just like, that's not how people would react. And then that's just what people do for the rest of the movie is they just stand there while bad stuff happens and they're like, Mom, what are you doing?
I feel like I have to give horror movies like this a pass when characters just sort of don't do things that are human, because I don't know if I've ever seen a horror movie where somebody acts rationally. And so I have to say, you know, like, it doesn't take me out of it in the way where I'm thinking, yes, I can rationally see they're young, They've never encountered anything like this before. It's literally buck wild crazy. Like, yeah, your first thought wouldn't be to like jump down a floor
or throw the
like
mom
a
out a
flight of
window.
stairs, or throw your mom out of the window because she threw up real bad. Like, I think there's an aspect where I'm watching the movie and I'm not taken out of it in terms of it's icky, it's gross, it is spooky in some way because there are these terrible things happening. I'm not scared. I don't see the horror in a lack of action in terms of these characters just letting the things happen. The dread, as you were saying, the creeping dread of just knowing that this is an Evil Dead movie. You know something horrible will be in the eye of this monster camera given life by Sam Raimi so many years ago. And that's what sort of ticked me off, is to throw away the bit that ends the first Evil Dead as a joke, as a one-off, and then not actually have it be a one-off. You say, this is a joke, it's a drone, haha. Actually, we're going to use the same concept for the actual possession that will happen later in the movie, but we did it as a joke and belittled the move that like crystallizes the first Evil Dead in my mind as like, what a fun way to ruin like an expectation of a horror movie, right? Is be like, the monster is here, you know? And it was cheesy and it was campy then, and it's cheesy and campy now. But to use it in this movie the second time when it's actually the same evil, you know, possessing force, and not have it be cheesy and just full on be like, we were in denial before. The drone was a fake out because we actually want to scare you with the same cheesy thing. There's a disconnect between what I know to be true about this camera move, about just Sam Raimi's vibe, you know, the Evil Dead universe, what little I know about it. It feels like you're taking things, like there's a board about the Evil Dead. You can sort of pick what you want and put it in an Evil Dead movie, and it'll come out like this, where you can slap the title on it, you can have the Book of the Dead, and you can have a Bruce Campbell cameo somewhere, he's secret in there, and it'll not be spiritually a successor in any way besides title.
So yeah, I would like to raise this question along with that of, why did we need this movie? And I am starting to wonder, did they need to make this movie because they had the license was about to run out, and the license had a little caveat that said, as long as you're making a movie once every 10 years, you can keep the license to this movie. Because there was no real setup or way that it fit into the universe as much as I understand. Like, was this a prequel to the Bruce Campbell one? Was this a sequel? Because the way it starts is the way it ends with. It starts with these characters at a cabin, and so you're like, oh, I've seen this before. That's a cabin.
Cabin.
Ooh. And then it cuts to the family. The whole thing happens to the family. And then it ends with setting up the person who you meet at the very beginning going to the cabin. And so it's like, all right, we've now come full circle here. I don't know why I needed to do that, because it would be so much as like setting up a Star Wars movie where you had somebody who like saw the Death Star blow up and they're like, whoa. And then they just go about their daily life, and you're just watching a movie about this dude going through his daily life. And you're like, why do I need this? Who is this guy?
Actually, it's almost like starting like Empire Strikes Back with the Death Star exploding. And then somehow it says a day before, and then the rest of the movie happens, and you're like, wait, what planet just exploded? How do we get from here? We got these goofy guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
That was weird.
That whole thing felt so disjointed. Where it starts with this whole thing in a cabin. You got who you think are going to be your main characters. Everything happens to them, and then it goes to one day earlier, one day before that happens, and sets up all of your other characters for the actual part of the movie. And so you're like, why did I really need that other than just to set up like what you...
You know what? I'd almost wish that whole 7-minute sequence right at the beginning was at the end, because I think the title reveal was pretty cool in terms of it. That. Like, oh, here's the rising. Like, right? Like, here's the Evil Dead rising out of the depths of this lake. It's going to be fucking cool. And then it's a day earlier, and you're like, oh, wait, no, so we don't get any of that? Shit. So if that happens at the end, then yeah, give me that movie in 2033, right? 10 years from now. But
yeah.
To fully subvert that sort of, oh, here's the Evil Dead doing all, we've seen, 3 on-screen deaths in minute 7, and then say, oh, but we don't really care about those people. We wrote them as if they were douchey, college, high school, whatever, and they don't matter because we wrote them bad, and now we have these characters that you should care about. So just do it at the end. If they're throwaways, don't throw them away at the beginning, because now I'm sort of like, well, yeah, they were written poorly, but you like set up a cool concept here and gave me the cool title coming out of the, wow, oh, cool. Oh, that's nothing? Okay, sure. We're here in the apartment now.
Yeah, it sets up the concept of what the Deadites are and what the possession of the Book of the Dead looks like. But at the end of the day, it didn't need to be there. And I do agree. I think it would have been way better at the end, because it would have been like, hey, we've now seen all this, and oh shit, it's happening again. And the next 20 minutes after that first 7-minute opening, again, sets up what possession looks like and what the Book of the Dead is and what the Deadites are and yada, yada, yada. And so it's like, why did we need that 7 minutes if we're just getting it again?
It is just a choice. Just a choice they decided.
And also, let's go with 2 other things that are bugging me about it. One, the one person who gets possessed kills her 2 friends and then is just there. And it's like, okay, well, now she's just at the lake. Like, what? Just chilling out? Like, she'll be sitting in a lawn chair. Like, was this setting up a sequel? Was this... I don't know.
Oh, yeah. If you're sort of on the right wavelength, it would be the woods where the original Evil Dead happens, or the most true to the original concept is like cabin in the woods possession. Yeah.
So if we're to think that this is the same woods that Bruce Campbell and his friends go to later, then...
Or before. That's the thing. Timeline wise, yeah, I don't really know. I don't think it matters.
Well, it does, because you have the book, right? So how did the book end up in this vault? Hypothetically, the book's been in this vault since the people first found it.
Aaron, I figured it out. I've got it.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've got an Evil Dead multiverse situation going on.
Sam Raimi, you crazy fuck, you did it. Oh my god.
That's one multiverse spotted. So here we go. The book is so evil. It exists across time and space. And Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, those all exist in their own little bubble. The Evil Dead reboot, that's a different universe book.
And every universe is connected by a Book of the Dead.
So
we can even loop in The Mummy, which has a Book of the Dead.
Emotep's gonna be in Evil Dead, the new 2033, baby.
That's right, folks. You heard it here first. The Mummy is, in fact, part of the Sam Raimi Evil Dead universe.
You know how they were trying to start the Dark universe, and it was like the Tom Cruise Mummy was supposed to be a new sort of thing with Russell Crowe as like Jekyll and Hyde. I think he was Dr. Jekyll.
I think so, yeah.
So this is the this is full circle. They're trying to do the Dark Universe again. It has
the
to be
Evil Dead Dark
the most
Universe.
convoluted answer has to be the right one.
Yeah, I don't know. And it is entirely possible that one, they were just running out of time to make a new Evil Dead movie. They needed to renew the license. They did it. And two, it's also entirely possible that they were like, you know what? I watched this movie when I was a kid. I thought it was fun, and I would like to add to the universe and have fun with it. And if that is truly what they did, then kudos to them, because I think that they had fun with it. I mean, they did a lot of spooky stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Spooky and the overly gory and just red. So red. Oh, man.
So
the end of this
red.
movie was so red. Speaking of the end of the movie, let's go to the beginning of a quick ad break before we come back for more discussion.
One day earlier. Yeah,
What
that's
movie
right.
should we watch?
That's how it felt, folks. Totally just... it didn't detract from the film, don't get me wrong. It was just weird to have this weird 7 minutes and then go a day earlier. And that's a fact that, yeah, you could totally look over. Like, it was just a little bit of text that, like, went across the bottom as if it was a reader on a news broadcast and you're, like, waiting for a snow day. And... And, like, Jimmy and I were talking, and I was lucky to be looking at the thing, because later, Jimmy was like, when is this? And I was like, oh, this is a day earlier. Like, you could...
I could have sworn the blonde girl who was rising up was then the mom who had, like, dyed hair. I was like, oh, it's her 20 years from then.
Yeah, you don't know if that, like, happens a day earlier or 10 years later. So just...
I was pretty confused for about 5 minutes until you brought me up to speed on that one, yeah.
Hey, people who did the text for this film, maybe next time make it just when you do the sequel for this, make it just a little bit bigger. Just a little bit. Or, put this at the end of the movie.
No, it's on me, man. I wasn't paying attention.
Have a little Bruce Campbell come up in the bottom left of the film and do, like, a little commentary.
Like
and
a
he's just
TV spot?
he like claps and then
he's wearing a big Arby's hat.
Oh,
and he takes it off like, oh, don't worry about that. Oh, wink. You're watching Evil Dead Rise. This is a day earlier. Oh boy, oh boy. I think we've talked a good amount about just the basic concept of the film, how it was used to sort of connect it to this supposed multiverse of the Evil Dead.
I think there's
2033.
I think there's one concept we haven't talked about yet, and that's just the horror and the gore and the body mutilation and the
rip me apart.
So
bit by bit.
Evil Dead is known for being gory and over the top. I mean, in the first one, spoiler alert, somebody gets raped by a tree. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some bad things happen in that movie.
Bad things happen. In the second one, he chops a person's head off. In the third one, there's a pit with a blood geyser. Sorry, in the Army of Darkness, not the third one. That's an entirely
it's a totally different movie.
But yeah, there's a blood geyser. And so in this one, we have just tons of blood and guts. People get killed. There's an eyeball that gets bitten out. There's the famous cheese grater scene that it seemed everybody was talking to. I saw the cheese grater come up. I said, oh, this is it. And this is a thing where people were like, hey, there's a cheese grater scene and you'll remember it. And I was looking forward to this scene because I wanted, nobody spoiled what it was, folks.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it, and it really wasn't much. I don't want to spoil it for you either, but it happened, and I was like, that was it? So, but beyond that, there was a lot of other scenes where it was like, all right.
It seemed tame in comparison to what things we have already been submitted to in the film.
Yeah. There's a scene where one of the women gets a piece of glass stabbed through her hand. Like I said, somebody gets their eyeball bitten out. There's
eats glass
broom
close
handle
up of it through the inside of the throat. Poking out.
There's a broom
of
handle that
glass
gets
stuff.
shoved through a head, and it was just like, oh, the cheese grater. Yeah, that's there too.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
do like right before it's magnetized to the person's head.
And like, dunk. I was.
You know they were the Iron Giant the whole time? Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing that just kept bothering me about this movie, and it's something that was done in the other movies, but didn't feel like a cinema sin almost, was that you have the people who are on the non-possessed people, and they're fighting these deadites. And the deadites are just extremely hard to kill, and you can just beat the shit out of them. You can light them on fire. You can stick things through their head. You can stab them, and you just get the idea that nothing's going to work. You read the book, and it says, hey, there's nothing that's going to kill these things. And you're like...
the book says...
until you speed it up with your finger.
And it goes, I'm Bruce Campbell.
Wait, are you the guy from the Red Room in Twin Peaks?
Yes, I am. David Lynch sent me.
David Lynch, please come on the show. So...
oh my god, I'd probably just die.
Oh
if
my
he
god!
Just popped in our freaking call. I would die.
Remember that time we watched Blue Velvet and then didn't do an episode on it because it'd be too obscure, but totally would have given us a streamline to David Lynch? Anyway, David Lynch, please come on our show. But yeah.
We watched your movie and didn't talk about it.
Oh, but we loved it. All right, back to this movie. So yeah, you get people who are just fighting and fighting and fighting these deadites, and it got to the point where it didn't feel like a, Sisyphean task or like a, I don't know, it got to the point where it just felt egregious, and that's the only way I can describe it, is it became not a fight against a unkillable monster, it became body horror and body gore, and it became torture porn, and it was like, this is pointless. And to have, the first half of the movie be the dread setup, I was like, oh, this is good. And then we're going to get to these monsters, and it's going to be a bad fight, and people are going to die. And then one of the deadites kills like 8 people in 20 seconds, and then all of those are off screen, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Bring that in here. Bring that into this movie. That's what this is about.
You get to see it through the lens of the door like a voyeur, you creepy peepo. Yeah. Look at you peeping at all those child deaths.
Alfred Hitchcock, don't judge me.
Oh, peeping.
So yeah, it got to the, I don't know. That's the only way I can describe all of the gore that happens in this movie is just egregious. And it got to the point where they would do something like shove scissors through their head, and then the monster would stop moving, and then you're like, I know it's just gonna start moving again. Why would shoving a pair of scissors through its head kill it when nothing else has killed it?
It's so weird to be on the other side of this and say what I'm about to say in terms of, I feel like you're correct in saying it's egregious, but I also think the point of this movie is for it to be egregious. And what sucks is because it is so much, it's almost like it's a fight back against a sort of desensitization to this sort of thing, in terms of, I was grimacing pretty much throughout most of the movie. I didn't like seeing any of these things happen. They weren't fun to look at or witness in any way, but it's almost like Sam Raimi in the first one, he was doing all this stuff and raping people with trees because he's a sick motherfucker and he wanted to do this shit. And this movie, for some reason, resonated in terms of, it was like, no, we don't want this to be happening, but it is happening. There's a sort of a chain of denial throughout this movie where the kids are in denial. They say, our mom is alive and fine. Oh no, she's not. This sucks. I hate this. Our sister is alive and fine. Oh no, she's not. I hate this. Our neighbors are alive and fine. Oh no, they're not. I hate this. All of these horrible things are happening, and they have to be desensitized and in denial in some way. And yes, it is egregious, and yes, the film literally just turns all the lights off, drenches everyone in blood, and is like, what more do you want from us? We've done it all. They stitched themselves back together in a horrible amalgam of just evil incarnate, and it's still not enough for you? Fine, we'll blow them through a fucking wood chipper. And so there's something of and I agree, it's egregious. There's so much to it, but it is like, it feels like a bunch of filmmakers crying out for help. What do you want from us? We beseech you, oh cinema goers. I don't know. It's a weird vibe coming from someone who's like, I watched Evil Dead and I go, oh, it would be so fun to make a creepy horror movie like this as a project to do. I don't want to do the sick Sam Raimi shit, but this is a thing that people could feasibly do. And then this one's just we got the CG, we got monsters that become inhuman masses of hands and heads, stuff like this. And I just, from a filmmaking perspective, I am wow, if people are not satisfied with this, if they go to this thinking they're going to get an egregious amount of things and they want that, and then they get it and you're still well, I'm upset about this for some reason.
I think what I'm more upset with is just the amount of inaction that came with the action. So it wasn't so much that the horror and gore is, over the top. It's just that it felt no purpose, because it was all right, whatever they're going to do to these things has no way of possibly working. So why am I being subjected to just more and more of it if I know it's not going to work, and that whatever they do, and then the thing stops moving, I know it's going to start moving again. They know it's going to start moving again. There's no horror there. It's just waiting for the thing to come back. And, you look at a movie like The Thing, where they fight the thing, and the thing keeps coming back. And you're like, all right, that's spooky, because I don't know if the thing they just tried is going to work or not. And then it comes back. You're like, oh, it came back. And along with that, they would do the thing, and then they would just sit there, and they would wait for it to come back. And I'm like, no, go do something.
Yeah.
In the second one, if I'm remembering this right, and I think it's been 10 years since I've seen the second one. I know it's been a lot more recent since I've seen the first one. In the second one, I'm pretty sure it's just him and his wife who are in the cabin. And it's his wife who gets possessed and is tormenting him.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I do not remember.
And so that one's tough, because you only have him and one other person. And how can one person be tormenting one other person without kind of a back and forth of,
sort of escalation is needed.
Yes. And that movie did a very good job of escalation, because he would do something, and rather than waiting, he would go do something to prepare in case it happened again.
Yeah.
And there was never any preparation for the next thing, or a plan to prepare for the next thing. And it was always just oh, we're going to improvise this and we're going to improvise that. And it was just I don't know.
And see, so it's I have to agree with you in terms of, I also found it boring, because yes, it's they kill it, they quote unquote injure it to the point of death, and it stops moving, and then it comes back, and they're like, oh no, that's bad. We should kill it again or try something different. And the issue is that they're just kids and an aunt in an apartment, and they're not Home Alone setting up traps and doing hijinks to get the goat of these deadites or whatever. And so there's an element where it feels almost like there's a realism in terms of how shitty they are at dealing with it. but then it fully flips that at the end, and you're like, oh, the escalation is in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so for it to have escalated that quickly to the point of wood chipper, chainsaw, shotgun, full on like Army of Darkness, just put it on your hand at that point. Like, I don't know, why bother not doing the homage if you're gonna do it anyways? So I agree. It's weird because they react in a way that is not fun to watch, but it is in some way how unprepared and shitty they would be at like dealing this in reality. It feels like almost like if I were attacked by a zombie in my house, I am unprepared. I would just run away. I wouldn't try to kill it at all because I would just have to run away because there is no way I would deal with that at all. And they're stuck in a situation where they would have to jump 4 to 5 stories off a building if they wanted to run away. And the movie doesn't set up, to me, and I think this is sort of what we were trying to get at, is like the movie doesn't set up that they are so helplessly trapped well enough to warrant how shittily they deal with this unstoppable threat. Because if it were Army of Darkness, you get a suit up montage, you get, caltrops and bombs and whatever the hell you want, comic book style. And in this one, it's sort of just a realistic take on, we're stuck in a building, no power, we're really just trying to survive here. Call it Evil Dead Survive. I don't know. Yeah, it just didn't set up that expectation well enough.
And I think that's it. And I think you've just pinpointed what I'm particularly what they could have done to kind of ease this for me. Is that I think if they had set up the direness of them being stuck in this building, because all they really set up is there's an earthquake and then the lights go out and then the elevator is possessed. And it's like, okay. And then there's a fire escape that is locked and for some reason they can't bust the lock. And then the stairs are, quote, gone. But there's only like one set of stairs that are broken.
Stairs are
and
gone.
Yeah. And you know what? I would jump 15 feet and risk breaking my ankle to get away from this monster. But I think the other movies did a very good job of like, hey, if you try to leave through the forest, it will rape you. Or because you know what? If I was surrounded by monsters and someone's like, the forest will rape you, I'm like, I'll fight the monsters.
Sorry, monster. You're going toe to toe with Aaron style
You're
now.
Stuck with me because I'm not fucking that.
Not going to the rape forest. Sorry.
And you can't cross the bridge because the evil possessing force breaks it and crumples it up, which is also very cool because it's like, okay, this thing's so powerful it destroys a bridge. And I think if they had done a better job of being like, because they show that the elevator's possessed, the cables come down, they choke the mom at one point, and you're like, ooh, spooky. But they should have done more of that, and they should have been like, there's electrical wiring, there's this, there's that.
Yeah.
The carpet comes up and eats a person.
Yeah, it has to be like the people nobody tried to run away.
Yeah.
Nobody tried to just get out of there. They all were like, we're going to shoot it with a shotgun or just be completely helpless and swallow an eyeball. Uh-oh. Yeah, there was a de-emphasis on the easiest thing to do in this sort of situation would be to try and get the hell out of there.
And for that matter, too, the evil possessing force, one of its things is to, like, torment. And so that's what all of this is it's like, hey, I know that I can kill these people, but I'd rather torment them to the point where they wish they were dead and then kill them. And, I think it's the second one, the evil possessing force, like, possesses all of the animal heads in the cabin, and then they sing the song to Bruce Campbell and make him go crazy. And it's like,
I've seen that. Was that the first or second? It's in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the second.
That's a great scene. I love that scene. That scene's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Or, even something where it's like, I think this one's Army of Darkness, where he's looking in the mirror and then the mirror breaks and then there's a whole bunch of little hymns that torment him. Like, they're just
amazing.
I know all like those two things are on the goofy side, and this was trying not to lead so much into the goof of things. And it didn't need to lean into the goof, but it needed to do something more on the like spectral weird shit side to show the torment more than just, look, I'm swallowing glass. Isn't that nasty? Or, ooh, I made some eggs and I left the shells in. Like, I don't know.
Mom, last time you did that, we had to order pizza again.
I dropped the pizza. But yeah, so yeah, there was too much of leading on the possessed people, not enough.
Before we give our final ratings, I have we pitch this as a funny Sam Raimi version. So the possession thing is coming out of the bank vault, and it goes over and it's doing the eye of the monster, and it goes over and it looks at the pizza that's dropped on the floor, and it goes, and then it's gonna go towards the mom, and then it's like, oh wait, it's just a little pizza. And then have one of the kids, have Danny be like a Home Alone kid, and they're scritching and scratching, they're doing DJ stuff, but also he's have cherry bombs, and he's a prepper, and he's got ninja shurikens, and he's ready to fight. Or, set it up in that way for a goofy sort of montage of a menagerie of fighting, possibly.
Yeah, or they should have made the character more like Freddie Wong's character in Dungeons and Daddies and had him be like an otaku who's also a prepper. Like,
They can't fully lift the majesty of Freddie Wong without getting him on as a writing credit. Now, come on.
True, with his brother in Hollywood.
He'd be a shoo-in for the next 2033 Evil Dead film. Yes, but that's the thing, is there are elements where you could see possibly this going in that direction and being very goofy and campy. And instead it just tries so hard to be this realistic depiction of a horrifying force, and just sort of like, make it funny sometimes. Yeah. You did a drone thing. Why, like, you can do it. You can subvert that, and it ends up being sort of, Raimi.
Yeah.
But then you try to just forget that you did that the rest of the movie, and I can't forget. It's the only thing I'm going to remember of this whole thing, is they did the Sam Raimi monster thing, and it turned out to be a drone. That's Evil Dead Rise for me.
That's fair. So, if that's the only thing you remember, would you recommend this to people? Would you recommend that they watch it so that they can get that wonderful shot?
Yeah, after all this, I unfortunately, because I went in not high expectations. I was thinking, let's see. I haven't seen the 2013 reboot. Let's see what another reboot of Evil Dead is. And we got this film, and it didn't meet the sort of low bar that I had for expectations of this film. And I have to say, it's a not watch for me. I don't think you need to watch it. There are other sort of films in this vein that meet the criteria that I was expecting. So how about you, Aaron? What do you think?
I'm also going to go with a not watch. When it comes down to it, you're right. There's plenty of horror movies out there nowadays. And along with that, you're going to pay homage enough to the first one that we remember it and talk about it, but you're not going to pay an homage enough to it that it feels good enough to the genre. And this is always hard with movies that have, like, Evil Dead itself defined the genre of cabin in the woods, spooky shit happens. And
in a way, yes.
Yeah. And, it itself is alone with other horror movies of, you got Nightmare on Elm Street, you got Jason, and then you got Evil Dead. And so, they're all kind of in their own thing. This wanted to kind of reboot it, but just didn't do it right. And it didn't need to be tongue-in-cheek, pay homage to it 100%. But if you're going to take something, if you're going to reboot something that's very original to itself, do it better. But if you're going to do, fun and just want to have fun with it, also just have fun with it. I think they had a little bit of fun making this, I guess. They did a cheese grater thing, but...
Sickos.
I'm also going to say, there's the part where the kids are down in, they're getting their pizza, they're down in the garage, the earthquake happens, there's a hole. The one dumbass kid goes, "Look, it's a hole!" And then goes over and investigates for some fucking reason.
Oh, Danny.
He looks down there, he finds a vault, and then Jimmy and I make a joke about it being a Fallout vault. And then we proceed to come up with the greatest movie idea we've ever fucking had. Folks, if you've never played it, Fallout New Vegas has a great vault, which
I think it's 3, actually.
I think it's Fallout New Vegas, because I had to suffer through Vegas to find the vault.
Is it Vegas? Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyway.
Adds more mystery to it to not know.
Either 3 or Vegas. Play them both, or mainly just 3 because Vegas kind of sucks. Hot take alert.
Hey, I flipped on Vegas. I get it now. I get it.
I'm still trying.
You have to play it as a role-playing game fully.
Oh, for sure.
You can't play it as I am a godlike Bethesda. I will master all skills. You have to play it as a character. That's what I figured out with New Vegas and Rand.
Regardless, in one of those, there is a great vault that you go down into, and there's these clones who are horrific. Their name is Gary, and they torment you, and it does a very good job. They do all. That's just all they say. Gary.
They just say Gary and laugh. And Gary, they question it. They do it when they attack. Gary.
Yeah. And it's amazing. And the first part of this movie set up a great Gary Fallout horror movie that if they made it properly and had our ideas in there, we're not going to give too many away. Freddie Wong, reach out to us if you want to make this movie. We will make it with you. It'll be amazing. So
Microsoft, Bethesda, reach out to us.
Give us the license.
We want to make the movie and title it Gary.
Gary.
Because there's Smile, there's a bunch of other single word horror titles, and you got Gary. It's going to be good.
Yeah. I would rather watch that than this.
The fictional movie Gary that we've made up. Yes.
2033, look out for it, folks. It's coming to theaters.
We're going to secretly name it Evil Dead Gary. But it's just going to be a Fallout. God, the rights of getting Evil Dead and Fallout. It's going to be a nightmare, my dude.
Plus, I'm pretty sure Gary Sinise is going to reach out and be like, "Hey, that's my name. You guys can't just take that. That's my copyright. We're going to have to get his license."
True. The original title was going to be Evil Dead Gary Sinise. You're right. You're really right. You're so right. I totally forgot. Original title.
Gary Sinise, if you want to star in it, we haven't cast him yet.
He could be Gary.
He could be Gary.
He could be Gary. Because Gary's the real star. You get the person going into the vault, but Gary is the star.
Alien wasn't called People. It was called Alien.
Yeah, it wasn't called Lady and Cat. It was called Alien. So yeah, please don't watch this movie. We recommend not watching this one and go watch Gary instead. It doesn't exist, but just think about it.
Yeah, but if you're listening to this in 2034, it's out now. So grab your popcorn, grab a little bit more popcorn, and go watch that.
And then you got Too Much Popcorn, and that's the show that you just listened to. Thank you so much. We had a double not watch, a consensus episode. It's good to have. Not that we hate disagreement in any way. It's just, if I say one thing, Aaron says another thing, and then we say the same thing at the end, it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to be contrarian to you. I was like, look, I got to be on the side of the film for some things.
And I totally thought you were going to end up with this being a watch. It happens, folks. We have our little disagreements, and we have our crisis modes. Maybe soon we'll watch another one where we end up in a crisis mode.
We would have had a crisis mode if I felt that this movie actually had any horror elements to it besides gore.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a new genre that's just gore.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Because there was the Dread building right at the beginning could be something that leads to horror. But physically, never. They tried to do the jump scare with Jesus. They tried to do a bunch of stuff in there that is like you're trying to do a horror movie and it's just not scary. It's just icky and gross and bloody and it's not scary. Eat the popcorn, go see a different movie. Rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you listen. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.